As always, access is power. And being able to have a seat at the table requires that we vote. And then we have representation that understands the needs of our culture and our community. This evening, we have the powerful, the man with integrity, the man who has a vision, who is accomplished, who understands that there is a need for a new reconciliation in this community. This is a moment for reckoning for those who don't understand it. This is a moment for our legislators to understand our culture. We are joined by the phenomenal, the powerful, the one who has valor and speaks for our community and represents us in Congress. Representative Al Green, thank you so much. 9th District, Houston.
Well, thank you very much. Your introduction was more than kind. And if I may say this with a degree of levity and with a degree of truthfulness as well, after the introduction, everything's got to be downhill from here. Thank you. And I want to thank you for being a voice and providing a platform, because the truth is that you have to get a message to the masses. And we have not traditionally had this type of opportunity. Your program reaches corners that a good many other places cannot get me into. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I'd like to thank your co-host, Mr. Hooks, as well. The two of you make quite a duo, and I'm eager to talk to you about things of interest to you. So I'll yield back to you.
I appreciate it. We've got a phenomenal video that we want to share with the community. Just an idea of what you have as a vision for the 9th District and even our community. So for you, just keep on looking at what we need to do, Kevin. This is going to be a phenomenal video.
Technology can sometimes not be as cooperative as we would like. So while
transitions on Zoom, I'm getting my Zoom up.
All right.
5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and still I rise. And I rise because I love my country. I rise because the winds of change are blowing across America. The winds of change are blowing through this House of Representatives. There will be changes in this House. And these changes are taking place because we are not respecting the will of the people. The people are speaking to us, and we must listen. The winds of change are blowing. We have an opportunity to do more than talk about invidious discrimination. We have an opportunity to do more than talk about racism. We have an opportunity to do something that can change the course of history. HRES 992 addresses the change that we need. To my dear brother who just spoke, I would have you sign on to HRES 992. It would provide a Department of Reconciliation. Yes, the Emancipation Proclamation was not a declaration of reconciliation. It's time for us to reconcile. We have survived slavery, but we didn't reconcile. We have survived Jim Crow's laws and Bull Connor's dogs, but we didn't reconcile. It's time to reconcile. All of the commissions are fine and I support them, but a department that reports directly to the President of the United States of America is in order. We need a...
There's a lot of fire there. What do you say, Kevin?
A ton of it. And as a matter of fact, all the things that we're talking about is exactly why we wanted to have this conversation. We know that yesterday was a historic day with the selection of Kamala Harris, but we also know that in 2016, we had a decline in Black voter turnout. Do you think that's going to be enough to, what are we going to have to do to make sure that we get the right turnout?
Well, I think that you're eminently correct. There's work to be done, and we should not assume that simply because we have made an historic move, and that was historic yesterday, and it touches my heart to even talk about it today. Because we have this historic move, that this is going to give us the historic turnout we're looking for. We really have to address the issues. In the final analysis, people want to know, what are we going to do to change the circumstance that exists in this country as it relates to systemic discrimination and institutionalized racism. And it's important to do this because when we look at various means by which we can ascertain how well we're doing in society, for example, the uninsured rate, about 6.3% of non-Hispanic persons are uninsured. But when it comes to African Americans, it's 10.6%. If you look at the net worth, the median net worth, non-Hispanic whites, $171,000 as median net worth. Blacks, $17,150. When you look at unemployment, non-Hispanic whites, 9.2%. Blacks, 14.6%. So when you look at the asset test that we can use to determine where we actually stand, how we measure up to other people in society, we see that we are lagging. So we have to hear from people, how is this going to be addressed? We cannot become so enthralled with the possibility of winning that we overlook the need to address issues. The issues still have to be addressed. And one of the ways that we can address systemic discrimination is to have this Department of Reconciliation of which I have spoken. We have a Department of Labor. The labor issues are brought directly to the President, Secretary of Labor. We need a Department of Reconciliation to be brought directly to the attention of the President so that the President will have that as a focus all the time, not just some of the time. We cannot continue to take all of these various segments of society where we're lagging and view them in silos, various silos, deal with each one individually. They all should be dealt with collectively. This department ought to be properly funded with the equivalent of 10% of what the defense budget is. The defense budget, because we know the defense budget is always going to be funded. And if we attach it to the defense budget, index it and associate it with the defense budget, it will be funded. A Department of Reconciliation would also give us the opportunity to have the commission that we're talking about. My dear friend and colleague, the Honorable Barbara Lee, has talked about a commission. She has legislation to bring us into that. I think that we can have that with a Department of Reconciliation. The Honorable Sheila Jackson Lee talks about reparations. We can have that with a Department of Reconciliation. No timeline on its existence. It doesn't sunset. The Labor Department doesn't sunset. And until we deal with invidious discrimination in this holistic fashion, we still will find ourselves with numbers like these that show that we are lagging behind. So the issues still have to be dealt with. And I'm going to add just one more thing to this notion of the issues have to be dealt with. We missed a great opportunity in this country to let people know, people meaning the world, how we genuinely feel about invidious discrimination. We could have impeached this president for his discrimination. He has weaponized it. We have talked about it. He has been called a racist by leaders in the House of Representatives, but we did not impeach him. We should have impeached him. And we knew that the Senate might not impeach him when we took impeachment before the Senate for what happened in Ukraine, but we still took it to the Senate. We chose not to take it to the Senate as it relates to racism because there was talk of how the Senate would not follow through and impeach him even if you did it. So we can't have these dual standards when it comes to racism and how we're willing to fight and how we're willing to address it. We've got to have the same standard for other pieces of legislation. By way of example, I've got a piece of legislation to rename the Russell Office Building. The Russell Office Building ought not have the name Richard Russell on it. He was one of the biggest racists and bigots of his time. Russell was a person who was a self-proclaimed white supremacist. Russell should not have his name on that building where tax dollars are paying for it. We ought not pay for a building that has his name. It's sinful, it's shameful that we allow this to happen. So these are some things that we can say we will do. I have a piece of legislation, by the way, that I'll be talking more about in other venues and with you again, but it's just on my heart right now. This piece of legislation would call for the building to take his name off of it, let it revert back to the name it had prior to his name going on, the old Senate office building, that was the name. And then the Senate can take its time in coming up with a new name, but it ought not have his name on it. So my mission is to eliminate invidious discrimination. I've given you but 2 examples of things that we can do, and I have many more that I can cite.
Representative Green, I agree with you wholeheartedly. In fact, after 9/11, we created the Department of Homeland Security. That makes sense. After George Floyd and the pandemic, the Department of Reconciliation makes sense. What kind of things do you envision that department doing to continue to add more protections for us in our democracy?
Well, I have legislation that this department can help us to implement. I believe that if you apply for a loan and with intentionality, the loan officer denies you the loan, that loan officer, in my opinion, is stealing from you. That's theft of your future. That's theft of what we call bootstraps. We want people to pull themselves up by bootstraps. Well, loans are bootstraps. So when that loan is stolen from you, that loan officer ought to face criminal penalties. We can make it a crime to steal a person's future. I have legislation to do so. This is the kind of legislation that this department would come up with, create, and propose to the president. We've got to be bold. We can't continue to do the same things and expect that we're going to get to the promised land. We've got to change the things that we do in a very bold way. Department of Reconciliation, along with a plan to make it a crime to steal a person's future intentionally. And by the way, Black people who are more qualified than white people go into banks and get less money than less qualified white people when we do the testing. Another thing that we could do is use this Department of Reconciliation to determine a means by which we can prevent Black people who work at these minimum wage jobs and others from living below the poverty line. I have a piece of legislation called the LAW Act, the Living American Wage Act. We would index the minimum wage to poverty, index it to poverty, such that when the minimum wage goes up, the poverty rate goes up, the minimum wage goes up. That way, nobody will work full time and live below the poverty line. We can have a department that's continually thinking of ways to improve the lives of Black people who have been put in this position because of what happened in 1619. We have not reconciled. This department will find ways to do this, and creative ways, such as some of the things that I've called to your attention.
Well, I appreciate that. I like the finance, because that's a real issue. I think the fintech companies should have to do community reinvestment. I think there's no reason why PayPal doesn't do community reinvestment, and any other digital banking transaction company that really services the community as a bank. If they're gonna bank people, they definitely should have to have the same requirements. And I think that the individuals skating through that situation.
Well, not only that, I concur with you. We ought to have a Community Reinvestment Act that applies equally to all. I concur with you. But I also think that we've got to give special attention to minority depository institutions. And I say this because a good many of them are in areas where we have low to moderate income people. They want to make loans, but they don't have the capital to make the loans that they would like to make. And when you go to the larger institutions, you go in with a credit score that may be lower than many of the credit scores they're getting, so you don't get the loan there. And then you have to deal with the invidious discrimination that you encounter. So we've got to make sure that Black-owned banks are properly capitalized. And if we're going to capitalize them from a community that is currently underfunded in terms of wages, currently underfunded in terms of wealth, that is an unreasonable expectation. The federal government has a responsibility to help us capitalize these institutions. When the big banks, I was there in 2008, when they were on the verge of collapse, a good many of them, we put money into the banks, and some of them said to us, dear brothers, look, we don't want to be associated with that because it's going to give us a bad image. We made all of them take the money. Whether you needed the money or not, you had to take it. And that way we didn't put a stain on any of them. And they, of course, paid back the money. We need to do something for the minority depository institutions. We don't have a large minority depository institution in this country. We are looking to get $1 billion institution, more $1 billion. We may have one or two that somewhere around $1 billion. But $1 billion is a very small bank, a very small bank. We need to get some $100 billion banks. We need to get some $1 billion banks that are in the league with the Chases and the others. That's how you build wealth in a community, because you've got banking and other means of borrowing. Bootstraps are loans. Don't let anybody kid you. You're not going to just go out and create your own bootstraps in a society where credit is important. You got to be able to get the loans, and we're being denied access to those bootstraps. You got to have the boots before you can have bootstraps, and the loans create the boots.
We really appreciate all that you're talking about. I look forward to having you on again. I know you're on a timeline, but we really are proud of everything that you're doing. You make us understand that you are culturally connected and culturally committed to the progress of our entire community. So we want to thank you for taking the time out. Everyone, this is a seat at the table. We are here with the phenomenal, the powerful, and the visionary Representative Al Green, 9th District in Houston. So thank you so much for coming on, Congressman. I can't wait for us to continue this dialogue, because that financial redlining impacts our community every single day.
Thank you so much for having me. And I do look forward to coming back. We'll be rolling something out soon that you'll be interested in.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, watching Rolling Out, a seat at the table. That was our powerful Congressman Al. What's going on, Kevin? We've got our next guest. Wasn't that a powerful? He's got a vision for our community.
He's doing his thing. We need more of them. So everybody make sure you go out to vote in November. If you're not registered, get registered.
I think you can get registered. I think you need to be registered. April.
Hi.
Hey.
How are you?
I am, I don't think I have cool glasses like you, but I'm pretty cool. Everybody got 2 glasses. Lisa has glasses. I'm telling you, Miss Khalid has this big tropical island like she's on some paradise. I mean, you know.
I'm trying.
The life. That looks like quite the life.
It's all virtual.
All virtual. It's easy when it's virtual.
Oh, I don't think those glasses are virtual. That's some new program. I think those are real glasses. I love. Lisa
always has great glasses.
Is that what it is?
April.
All right.
Well, listen, we are so excited to be speaking with you and Kevin tonight. You know, we're all here in New York, and we had to show up, correct?
That's right. Talking about fashion.
You talking about Kevin? No, I think I think the whole captivating of the body of work is so insightful that you put together. I think that's what's. I mean, what moved you to do all this? Where how'd this love come together?
Well, you know, it always comes from a higher power, and we are truly just the vessels. You know, that's for me the process, and I think shared by my collaborators. You know, being a woman in hip hop, starting out at Def Jam and Rush in the golden age, and then fast forwarding to this time where there's been all these incredible hip hop documentaries. What I kept thinking was, where are the women? Where are our contributions? Because we were there. You know, the other day was the anniversary of the beginning of hip hop, 1520 Century Avenue with Kool Herc. And of course, his sister, Cindy Campbell, threw the party. So it's, you know, I think what all of us are committed to is restoring and resetting narratives so that they reflect our collective truth.
And that still is real deep, collective truth. Okay. I like that. I like that, having a collective truth. Is that where you were, April?
I mean, like Lisa, everything centered from God for me. Like at this point in my life, it's how can I serve best? And I think that where we're at right now, our stories need to be told. So when Lisa told me about the project, and it's something near and dear to my heart, on hip hop, on women, on fashion, on history, I was all for it. And then on top of it, it was like 90% all female, the actual crew that worked on the project, which I've never seen in my life. So it was very empowering in all aspects.
All right. Well, we've heard from my two dear sisters with the glasses. I guess, Miss, you're just going to be quiet over there. This is that moment for you. You can start with the name of the documentary, how that came to be.
The name of the documentary is The REMIX, Hip Hop Times Fashion, and you can see it on Netflix, of course. We're very excited about that. I was brought on when the project was already in its idea form. So Lisa had reached out to our co-producer, Hillary Cutter, and said, you know, I'm looking for a partner to kind of, you know, take me on this journey, and we wanted to do this together. So I had never met Lisa before, and I got on the phone and we hit it off, and then that was it. Then we just started this amazing journey together, and now it's literally the rest is history.
Right.
Well, listen, I'm willing to make the leap of ignorance and say, and ask, am I pronouncing your name correct? Farah?
Yeah, that's correct.
See, so Farah, there's always been, since the beginning of hip hop, this convergence of hip hop and fashion. I don't know if that was intentional or unintentional, but talk about how that evolved into what you guys are working on today.
Well, I think, you know, hip hop was a lifestyle, right? And still is. It's what you wore and what you listened to. They just naturally went together. You had, you know, Run DMC talking about Adidas in their tracks, and you know, you have Roxanne Shante talking about the Kangol cap. So it's like it's always been intertwined, and it's always been a lifestyle, I believe. So it just seemed like natural to talk about those two things as one topic, and how they influence each other to this day still continues. I mean, hip hop was a subculture, now it's mainstream, and now it's considered not so much, it's almost like the word hip hop has been taken out of it, because now it's mainstream and there's a wider audience, but it's still hip hop. It's just now it's more people listening to it, not just like one subgenre of person. So it's always been important to look at how everything influences each other. And the clothing now that we're seeing comes from what we were seeing back in the 80s and the 90s on the streets. So it was really a journey of bringing it from the subculture to the mainstream, and showing the women who were so integral in that journey. And you have one sitting right here. Like, why did we not know her story? You know?
No, I'm sitting there looking. She's. I'm trying to figure out which artist she is channeling right now. Both of them. I'm like, okay, which one are they channeling? April's channeling somebody, and it feels like some Mexican artist at this moment. So I'm feeling that. Obviously, when you look at Lisa, she clearly could be anybody that I love and know that created culture for me in the community. So I love it. But just from a designer standpoint, what should we really be taking away for people when they're going to look at this, Lisa? What should we take away? And I think I love that this is a female moment. And I've asked many of my brothers, I'm like, y'all might want to go to the doctor, get your glasses fixed, because you're missing the moment in the narrative. You feel like you need to comment a lot. You might want to just like ride and be a side piece, because you know y'all always ask women to be a side piece. Y'all might want to just be a side piece, because this narrative is real and this is their moment, and it's always been. But now they're telling you it's their moment. And I mean, even from Black Lives, most brothers are like remiss. Women started, dude. Like, accept that fact. And it's like a whole revolution going on right now in our culture about where the role of women and how they're playing a role, and just acknowledging that they've always been there. So how does this play to that, Lisa?
Well, if anything, we are moving to, is there an audio issue?
A little bit.
I'll try to talk slow. Maybe that's it. What we're moving away from is the pyramid, and we're moving to the circle, where we are connected as a community. Because the only way that we have survived in this country, before that, you know, in Africa, is we were a circle. And I think that is what's happening now, is we have to remember that. And so that even though our film featured April and Misa, it also talk about Dapper Dan, because Dapper Dan was an ally, who's still an ally. And we are going to not just survive, but thrive. We got to do it together in the circle.
I'm with the circle.
That was a mic drop for April.
You know, I
DJ Cassidy, take the mic, April.
No, Farah, I like to do long pauses after we've heard some thing that we need to put on. I'm all about togetherness. I believe that. I believe it's a unifying moment, but I do want men to recognize that there's a level of reconciliation that we have to do. And it's not about saying back on brothers, but we as brothers have to reconcile with ourselves that we have been just as oppressive to women as a system. Now, brothers don't want to hear that all the time, but I'm saying it out loud so more of us can have the courage to do things together and understand that we can do it equally. We can also fade to the side and really support in ways that we're not used to. We can actually be vulnerable. We can actually share our emotion. You know, but I was sitting there thinking of you, Lisa, and I was talking to April, since she's a fashion designer. How should we look at this? I mean, literally, I love the discussion, but how can we fix our eyes to understand what you presented?
I think some of us are already looking in that lens. I have to be honest, when you were saying that, I was thinking about my career, and had it not been for men, I wouldn't be here now. When I think about all the men that rolled up their sleeves, like I just did a big shoot with Method Man, like, and this is a relationship I built from the day he signed with Def Jam, and he's still supporting, and it's not about what are you paying me? It's about us both revering hip hop and believing in something. The relationships I've built over the years that have become these iconic moments weren't that when we started. It was just energy feeding energy, and us being artists and really believing in something bigger than ourselves. And I don't think we looked at it like, you're a woman and I'm a man. We were both creative. So in that sense, it's there in terms of, to me, like, but the work we have to do, no doubt, we don't get the same opportunities. We don't have the pay. If you look at what a woman gets paid and what a man gets paid, it's still different today. You know, there's so many levels to it. And then being a Black woman or a Blexican woman, you know, there's even more issues. So we have a lot of work to do, but I think that what Lisa said is so true. I think lateral cooperation creates vertical movement. So that's where we have to start. Are you hearing me?
No, I'm not hearing you. I'm kidding.
Oh,
I just work to sound. I work to sound alarms for brothers that don't recognize. I think it's very important at this moment to fade to the side. I mean, I respect Method Man, but learning how to fade to the side just allows us to. If it's your moment, it's your moment.
All
I
right.
had friends that literally didn't understand what was happening when the young kids were out on the street, and they were like, "They're making us look bad." And I said, "Who are they making look bad?" Because he didn't understand that there was something happening bigger than him, and he was not in that moment. If you're a man and you're not understanding that this is the moment to hold up every torch, open every door, and literally start to immerse yourself in love in this moment, then you still gonna kind of miss a lot of moments.
It's gonna
And
miss them all.
I'm just saying. So I say it out loud because out of respect and
Right.
out of self-change. It's like, you know, when we're all working to change for other young brothers, then we've got to share out loud because they may not see another brother say that. When you're literally talking about, you know, fashion and you have Black homophobia, you got to kind of deal with the truth that, hey, bro, that's just not cool. Like, you don't have to like anybody, but you got to respect everybody. And I'm just saying, in the voice of how we want younger generations to hear and see a brother and recognize that his fashion is free in the same time that you imagine you need to be uptight. He's actually doing what you ain't got the courage to do in many moments in fashion. Because I still ain't got with the skinny jeans, but you know, it's cool. You know, I let somebody else rock it. But I do enjoy that. So you want to look at the trailer? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Trailer.
Let's do it.
Let's do that. That's something we can do while we make the transition. Lisa, good to see you. Send me that painting in the back with the Louis Vuitton frame, you know. I need a little bit of that in my life, you know. I haven't, you know, you guys are my house guests. I don't see humans in my house, so you are my house guests this evening. So I clearly want to watch this trailer. And
I'm going to jump and get headphones and see if that will help with the audio on my end.
I like that. So how long did it take while we talk? How long did it take to get the whole project finished from start to finish?
We basically got greenlit in March of 2018, and then we premiered in May of 2019, and we were working right up until the end. So just a little over a year, and that we could have done with, you know, a few more months, but that's not how it works in production. So a year, just running.
You picked the right year though.
Right?
If you were trying to do it this year, that would have been a real super pause.
No, we've been really blessed. Really blessed.
Yeah, I'm saying that. April, have you found a way to move around outside of New York yet and share, or are you having Zoom parties and Zoom watch parties with this?
Yeah, I've been playing it real homebody. So I've been Zooming and just really listening to people. I saw, you know, I'm overwhelmed by people on social media that are hitting us that are just impacted and inspired by the stories and by the history. And so I'm very grateful for the film for that, because it's pushing, like you said, young designers to move forward. And some of them were like, I'm giving up. I was giving up, but now I'm moving forward. So, you know, that's been very humbling.
Yeah, you talk about humbling. I guess when you work with giants, they'd find your work humbling. You know, we just energy to energy. You were in a moment in time that many people will be envious of, and it won't be so organic. Because now it definitely is rarely organic. It's big, you're big. It's kind of mediocre.
I know.
Roll it, TJ.
Fashion has always been political for Black people.
Black culture, Black fashion, Black bodies is always cool as long as it's not on Black people.
It's all the same landscape. of African Americans that wanted to express pain, express creativity that's on the inside, and we have to pour it somewhere. And so hip hop became the somewhere for our culture.
Hip hop is the first platform ever that we've been able to make real progress with globally.
Misa Hylton came along and really upped the ante. She took traditional fashion looks and she gave it that black edge.
Women in hip hop fashion don't always get the respect that we deserve, and we've always been there from the beginning.
So much of our story is in what we wear. Our Black Lives Matter collection had like we sip, heat, breathe, breathe, breathe. When American fashion is spoken about, Misa Hylton is left out of the conversation.
The new generation needs to know our history.
Our music and our fashion, we keep creating new culture. This is our time.
That was dope.
There you have it. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, I think it's better now.
So, I noticed the street art in the background. That's something that I think, sometimes forget to talk about. Graffiti or street art, that's from all the way from, the MTV days all the way to Banksy. Talk about the influence of the street art on the project. April.
I can talk about street art as it relates to fashion, urban fashion, and streetwear. I'll shout out P&B because I think they were a great example of that. Who were all they were all graffiti artists, not all, but most of them the founding members. And Lower East Side, Brooklyn, Coney Island, they met up like 80s and that's what they did. But as hip hop was such a lifestyle, they wanted that graffiti to live and not just be in Brooklyn or on the train, but travel the world. So that's how P&B was formed into a streetwear line. Started to start making t-shirts, and from the t-shirts, it rolled out to a whole lifestyle brand. And there are many examples of that, but they were some of the pioneers in that graph world that expressed themselves, and it became something bigger than just graph in terms of a brand. If we go I was in Florence and I saw somebody tagged up, Jay Dilla is my hero. And I just smiled, you know what I mean? So it's like hip hop is worldwide, and it's whether it's the art or the fashion or the music or the film, or when someone opens their mouth, you can just tell like they're living it and breathing it. And it feels good to see that.
I mean, when we look at the elements of hip hop, it's always been break dancing, rapping, DJ, and graffiti.
Right.
That's part of our origin story. And as Farah and I put the film together, what was really important was for us to find archival materials by some of the most celebrated photographers. So folks like Ernie Panicoli, Jamel Shabazz, Jeanette Beckman. But then also going back 60 years to James Vanderzee, who took the most beautiful pictures of Black folks in Harlem in the 20s, 30s, 40s, up to the 80s when he shot Basquiat. So that's all a part of our story and how we express ourselves through this various modes of culture.
That was a long pause. I was just doing a long pause in it. But when you both, and I'm saying you, Lisa, and then obviously Farah, when you thought about this project as a body of work, what kind of story do you want people, if they're having to have a feeling after they've had this experience? We'll start with you, Farah. What should they feel?
Our goal from the beginning was always to inspire. We wanted to inspire people to really feel like they're valued, right? Especially people of color, especially Black people in this current cultural climate. they're constantly told they're not valued, to the point where their lives aren't even valued. So we were really hoping to just, if you can give someone, to be like, look, this is what Black culture has created. This is how important and integral it is to mainstream society. And you as a person are a person of value. That's like the ultimate goal. And I never even thought of that. Like when we made the film, I was making a film and I wanted to make sure it was, we wanted to make sure it was inspirational and influence women. But after screenings, while we were traveling with the film and festivals, so many young people would come up to us and wait through the Q&A and just wait there and stand and say, thank you. Thank you. I feel like I've been heard. I feel like I'm important. And that would bring me to tears. So it's like, if you can do that, like, done. I've done my job.
So Lisa, what did they hear? What can people anticipate and what can they share? How do we have conversations after watching this?
Well, first off, that history is fun. A lot of times we think that history is spinach, but this is like spinach with cream sauce. And that the past is prologue to where we are now. Like there are so many signs about what we've done that can speak to our future. And that this is a film that has great music. It has these artists that we love, and it tells you who the architects were behind the artists. There's so much revelation in the film that people always are like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And I do want to say that I have to, Misa Hylton sends her apologies. She's on set, she's working with an artist. They said they were going to be through at 4:30 and she's trying to get out of there since 3:30 to join us. But she really wanted to be here, but she had a professional commitment to work with this artist. So, but she thanks you got, you know, Munson and Kevin and Tigner for this incredible invitation.
She's not forgiven. On the 25th and 26th, we have the RIDE convention, and we're gonna make sure that we get her there so she can, you know, atone for her. We don't want anybody to miss any bread during COVID. You know, your brother would have been pissed off if somebody missed the opportunity during COVID, because, you know, money ain't flowing like it was flowing. So much love, but we do have a convention coming up, so we can circle back on that. I love it. I was hanging out with Dapper this time last year in the Vineyard, and it was great to see him, people acknowledging him. He was actually speaking about his book. But I really love this because many people won't read books, and this will at least begin to kind of ignite the study of what it is. And I was hanging out with Tom Burrell, who I'm sure you know from Burrell Ad Agency. And I said, "You're gonna write another book, Tom?" He said, "No, I need to make a movie because I can touch more young kids and they can be proud of their images. And I think the next thing I do, it has to be a film, because people don't dissect books in the way that he would like his book to have been read. And I think this will allow you not only to be inspired, but to begin to study and to research, because you've given them tidbits, little gems to go look for. What's your favorite gem in this entire piece? What moves you the most when you watch this, April?
That, you know what, in God's time, that whatever you are meant to do, you and God co-create that, and nothing can stand in the way of that. You got to believe in yourself against the odds. And if it's not there, don't wait for the opportunity, create it. And if the door isn't open, break the door open. And I think people will see that watching this film.
And if the door doesn't open, you can't break it down, then go in the window.
Go around it.
No.
Build a new one.
Right. Yeah. Go get the ladder, whatever it takes.
We don't need to wait to sit at somebody else's table. We need to start creating our own as well.
I love that. What about you, Lisa?
I love that a seed that was planted in me many years ago to tell the story, that I was patient, I was faithful, and then I happened to link up with, first of all, you know, MCM and Tribeca Studios, who have poured so much love into this project and support, that I spoke to my brother, Emil Wilbekin, who said, I got to introduce you to Misa. Misa said, you got to talk to April. They said, you got to talk to Dapper Dan. That our other co-writer, Andrew and Farah and Hillary Cutter, and like a whole tribe came together. Our credits are like almost as long, our end credits is almost as long as the movie, it feels, because there's so many people who gave their genius and brilliance to realizing the story. And that's a great gift because the story and the legacy we are seeking to honor is so important.
Fair.
I just love that we were able to tell these stories and that everyone has been so receptive to them. You know, when you go into making a film, you don't know if anyone's going to watch it. You don't know if anyone's going to like it. And the fact that we're now getting messages from all over the world of people saying, I just watched your film, I'm going to watch it again. I didn't know this history. It's like, it's really a powerful form of communication and a really powerful art form to just be able to touch people across the whole world.
Yes.
And they feel the need to actually find you on Instagram and send you a message. Like, that's incredible.
Kevin has something.
So Farah, I was an original EP on Michael Clark Duncan's last film, From the Rough. And I remember when we first saw the script and that first moment I was introduced to the project and the excitement that I had. Can you talk about the first moment you were introduced to this project?
Yes, I got a call from our co-producer, Hillary Cutter, and she's like, hey, there's this project coming my way with this amazing woman, Lisa Cortés. She's going to direct, produce. She's Academy Award nominated. Like, the credits went on forever and the accolades. Would you be interested in getting on a call? I'm like, yeah, of course. It sounds cool. What's it about? She's like, hip hop fashion. Okay. We get on the call, and then Lisa starts telling me the story about Misa Hylton and like her contributions and how she's unknown, and she really wants this to be a woman's story and an empowering story. And like, I just kept hearing check, 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 like all the things that I'm really passionate about. And so when I got off the call, I had not heard of Misa Hylton before, and I started to try to do research. I could barely find anything. So I'm like, okay, that means we have to tell the story. And then that was it. I was like, I'm done. I'm gone. Like, I want to tell this woman's story.
And Munson and Kevin, you know, Farah's background is so rich. She worked with Mariah Carey. She worked with Prince. You know, she comes from working with music videos and documentary in other formats. So it was just a great gift for her to come with all of that experience to this process. Yeah, she's being very modest because she's at the estate.
I got nature vibes right now.
So how many acres is that, Farah?
You know, it ends right a little bit behind the hammock. That's it. I don't got acreage. I got quality, not quantity.
No, I think that the imagery in there is incredible. So you must have had an incredible team looking for images, historical images. I just can't believe some of the stuff that I saw. What's out of your personal collections? What did you bring to it, April? And I know, obviously, Lisa, you brought something to it. And who else contributed? Because, I mean, you can't really bring a documentary together without those gems that really tell that story and show you Big Daddy Kane 200 years ago.
I really shared a lot of my history through a lot of the digital content we had in terms of styles, in terms of fashion, in terms of a backdrop of our first shop where we started in Brooklyn in the 80s and what that was like at that time. So there was a lot of visual storyboarding, if you will, through fashion and through my walk-in fashion. That was my part and what I was able to contribute to give a feel for it. And that was, of course, asked by Lisa and Farah as they were shaping the story. And they could tell you more because they have so much more that made it rich.
So we had an archival producer, and then, you know, I have to give a big shout out to Vicky Toback, who produced an incredible book about hip hop photography. And she was so supportive of, I'd be like, how can we find X, Y, and Z? Because nobody's seen that except in your book, Vicky. And she always, like, seconds later, said the information. You know, we certainly have images from Getty and, you know, all the usual suspects. But what it was important for us was to talk to people like Ronnie White, who was on the scene and covered all the parties, you know, and people might not, you know, he might not be in some archival service, but he's authentic, you know. And having come from the music business and having worked with a lot of these folks, it was great to work with an Ernie again, or a Jamel, you know, a lot of the folks who made a contribution to the film.
Yeah, it really tethers the spirit of a whole generation that came together. I was just amazed, even looking at the trailer. Thank God I have Netflix. I'm gonna make sure that I play it twice and then have a lot more to say for the 25th and the 26th of RideCon. But as a creative, how would you say this, what does this add to your body of work? Like the beauty of doing something after is now the baby's out. What does it say to yourself now that it has been birthed? If we just go around and start with you.
You cut out, who'd you say?
I said, we'll start with you, Lisa.
You know what? It says that this is a continuum of a long time of loving my community, uplifting, telling these stories, and that people are hungry for them. They travel around the world. They educate, they elevate, they create empathy for the characters. And it makes me excited to take on, you know, the next project that will once again shine light on the value of who we are and what we bring to the world.
All right, April?
I think the most exciting part when I think about this is just sharing culture, our culture, and just really lifting that up and showing. I think this film was shown with loving eyes, and it was filmed with loving eyes, and it was created with loving eyes. And when you watch it, you can feel that. And I think a lot of times our stories are told by other people that might not have those same eyes. So when you can feel that, I think that's why you're seeing that and you're feeling that and getting those DMs from people all over the world, because they can feel that. And I think that's inspiring, because it shows that, man, this world does need healing right now, but if we come together and we create, anything is possible. So that's exciting to me.
Same question, Fair.
I got bit by the documentary bug after this. I'm just so excited to find more stories, untold stories, and continue producing films that are going to inspire, hopefully, and that will educate and uplift women and people of color. Because, you know, like April had said earlier, there's not a lot of diverse voices telling our stories. And so as someone who's now hopefully in the position to do that, that's what I want to continue doing.
That's amazing. You know, historically, you're talking about documentaries. Historically, documentaries have been at the bottom of the pile when it comes to the amount of money available for them. Have you seen an improvement in that through this project, or you hope to see an improvement because of this project?
I feel like reality TV gave way to documentaries. And, you know, reality TV is very curated. It's not really real, as we all know, but it gave people the appetite to see stories that feel real, that are real. And with Netflix bringing in a bunch of documentaries onto their programming early on, prior to COVID and everything, they started seeing more of an audience, and documentaries are now having their heyday, and it's what people want to watch. And I feel like the pandemic in a way is helping with that, because no one's really out living their normal life. So if you can watch things about life out there and real stories, especially if they're uplifting, I feel like documentaries are now kind of the go-to for storytelling.
So the days of it only being a passion project might be over.
Hope so.
So April, I was thinking about fashion and as it relates to this project. How did you narrow down the options? Hip hop fashion has to be so vast. How do you start narrowing down the focus of the fashion that you wanted to utilize?
You mean when I create?
Yeah.
It's always about a feeling. Just like any, you know, I'm always inspired by something, and that's how I start creating. And I think the point of differentiation for me is just going with my gut and believing in what that is. A lot of times, I'll be honest, a lot of my inspiration comes from the way I feel in terms of socioeconomic factors. So at different stages, you might see things more militant. At different stages, you might see things more vibrant, you know, in colors. At different stages, you might see a very soft touch, you know, so you look at them in different, I'm a foodie. So I could be eating somewhere. I might be having some great Indian food, and just the spices of that and all the earth tones move me, and I see something, you know, so it's everything. I draw influences from around the world and sometimes just jot it down, and it comes together later. So that's kind of how I start. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great answer. And I want to know, so with you, Lisa, how was the collaboration?
It was divine intercession. You know, I think the proof is in the pudding, and it's a rich, complex film, and a film like that is only made with incredible partners.
So you're looking forward to working together again?
Absolutely.
That's much.
No, I really like the, it doesn't feel exploited. I mean, the worst thing in the world for me as a hip hop is when it feels super commoditized, lacking message, clearly not inclusive at all. So I really love the idea that you brought some truth, some compassion and respect to the art, because it clearly is in need of some love, to borrow from April. Many times not getting the love. To know that it was in kind hands. What made you take the marriage between music and fashion and tell that? Was that something that you wanted to make sure happened in thinking of Dapper and all the other people in music? Because I know you have that connection.
Well, a lot of it basically had to do that Tribeca Studios contacted filmmakers and said, we're working with MCM and we're taking pitches for stories about hip hop and fashion. And we would love if a woman's perspective is integrated into the story. And so that's when the journey started to find the wonderful characters, the April, Misa, Dapper Dan, Kirby, and then also to include our friends, you know, Mimi Valdez and Bevy Smith and Joan Morgan, and, you know, all these incredible women who have been an integral part of this story.
No, I just looking, funny you should say that. I was just thinking about how beautiful it has been to see the women at the top move forward. I mean, Bevy is just like killing it and continuing to give an example of what it's like when you are honest, when you are there, when you are true to who you are, and just connect. I so miss New York right now. I'm actually in Atlanta, but I so miss New York just to kind of go get the feel, get my shot, connect with everybody and get back out. Not enough land. I like that you have a nice spot, but I'm in a city in Atlanta, which we think is the best city in the country, because we're only 3 miles. And just from a Black perspective, I just love what we're able to get. So April, when it comes, we're gonna have to bring you down and visit our spot and create in our spot. I think that would be wonderful. And I'm really proud of the body of work that you've done.
Thank you.
I think that's so important. So invite me to Fashion Week so I can kind of like just hang out with you and see what it feels like,
Anytime after COVID, we're good.
Well, I'm telling you, y'all are my guests. I've been here since, I've only left my house one time, and that was to go pick up my wife in Chicago. I told her, you got to get tested before you get in my car. I need to read the test. And as soon as you get in the car, we're not waiting around. We're going back to Atlanta and back to the house. So I'm not playing with COVID. It's I'm way past the age to play with COVID. So I really love the whole idea. Kevin has something else to say, I can tell you.
Yeah, no, I was laughing about your turnaround trip.
No, it's just what it is. It was a road trip. Tell him, Lisa, you can do a road trip,
Mm-hmm.
I have friends in the vineyard. I've got friends that literally are doing this. If you had to say this is for the culture, what would you say that this is, Lisa?
I'm sorry, it cut out.
If you had to say this is for the culture, what would you say that this is in this document?
This is a gift filled with creativity, history, entrepreneurship, and love for the community.
I love that. All right, April, you had a long time to think about your answer. So,
I mean, the first thing that came to mind when you asked it was it's a love story. It's a love note for the culture.
I'm still in that. I just want you to know. When you read it in one of my books, and he said that it was a love note for the culture. I'm casing all the time, copying and stealing everything. So I just want you to know.
Run with it.
I'm gonna run with it. All right, Farah.
I would say it's a respect for the culture and making sure people see it.
Well, I love it. I really thank you for taking the time to have a seat at the table. I think we've expressed to everybody what they need to do and see. Lisa, I'll actually watch it this weekend and put up a decent review.
Only decent?
Well,
You gotta live in the love, like April said. Come on.
I think April knows a brother when she sees one. We always KG, and Lisa knows, period, that I love my community. So if it ain't gonna be good, I ain't doing it.
You're gonna write a really good review when you see it.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm fair. I'm not very half in, half out. I'm not that kind of guy. I don't do that. I don't switch. Tomorrow I'm the same guy that you can count on. I'm not gonna disappear, and I'll be more famous in a month from now. But I clearly not gonna change the love that I have for the people in my community. That's not gonna change. So we really appreciate you coming in, seat on the table. Lisa, I will be in contact. Fashion Week, anything that Will and I can do to help move the ball forward, or any challenges we need to do. Obviously, the platform's here for you and everything. But much respect to all of you. Love to you. I was definitely feeling as though I was watching. Is it Frida, the artist from Mexico? Frida. You were channeling her. I just want you to know that. I hang out in Detroit. There are a couple of images of her in Detroit. April, her first husband. But I just wanted you to know you were channeling her for a minute there. So
she's someone I get a lot of inspiration from.
I'm just saying it. So, you know.
Being Mexican, you're speaking my language, so I love it.
Well, you know, it was beautiful. So I was enjoying the whole channeling the thing, and you know, so it is what it is. And obviously, Lisa, forever love. Thank you so much for your gift to the community. I'll send you something to green light someday. You know, film's not in my list for 2020. I'm just looking to survive. That's my main goal, surviving COVID. We'll get to films later. I'll leave that to the professionals. So thanks so much for tuning in to A Seat at the Table. Everybody, you're watching, and we want you to watch. Who wants to do the promo? Is it you, Lisa, or April?
We'll let April.
I think it should come from you, Lisa. You're gonna do it. I'll run it.
You know what? Let's pass the mic. So I'm gonna start the cipher. I'm gonna pass it to you, and then you pass it to Farah.
Okay.
Like it.
So, let's get old school. Kevin Munson, thank you very much.
All right.
Hope everybody will check out this film. Pass the mic.
Pass the mic.
Make sure you pass the mic. But before you pass the mic, make sure you check out the remix. And thank you for having us today. I'm passing the mic to Farah.
Farah.
I'm not even gonna try because
Go Farah. Go Farah.
The remix, Hip Hop That's Fashion on Netflix. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
For all you guys that think you know something about hip hop, until you watch the hip hop remix, you're not. If you're gonna be in the spot, if you're gonna be on the flick, watch Netflix remix hip hop tonight. So whatever we do, whatever you say, we thank you, Lisa and Farah. Anyway, peace. This is all of us at Rolling Out for the love, A Seat at the Table. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Stay safe.
Please stay safe, healthy.
Everybody, this is Ones and Steve. So take the time this weekend to check out A Seat. Hold tight, Lisa. A Seat at the Table, and be sure to watch Hip Hop Fashion Remix on Netflix. It is a phenomenal movie, and it tells a story. Remix hip hop fashion. So go check it out. You saw designer. We want you all to know that she has done more than you know, but definitely represented so that we have the culture that we have today. I'm Munson Steve. We appreciate you all. And you've been watching A Seat at the Table on Rolling Out. Good night.